be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee. I took an arrow in the knee.
Welcome to episode number 14 of Troll Scroll, an Elder Scrolls Online podcast. As usual, we have a lot to talk about and a short time to do it. Let's jump right into it. Sophie Brecka, how you doing up there? How's it going?
Hi, Tom. Doing great. How's everybody tonight?
I'm swell. Ready to do a show. Exciting. And of course, Tim A. LaPerriere, my fellow Michigander, that French guy. Hey.
Yo, what's up?
Nothing much, bro. What's up with you?
Nothing. Just hanging out. Chilling. Literally chilling. It's pretty cold.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. And Dan the Man. Welcome back, sir. It's been a week. We missed you, buddy.
It's felt like forever.
Felt like forever.
1 week, man. That took a long time.
Yeah, dude. I'm glad to have you back on the show, bro. Glad to have you back on the show.
I'm glad to be back.
Guys, we have a new question of the week. Without further ado, let's check it out.
Hi, my name is Michael Zanke, and I'm a writer on the Elder Scrolls Online. The mysterious Dwemer race disappeared even before our game began. Nobody in Tamriel knows why, or at least nobody's talking. Knowing what you know about the race, why do you think they disappeared?
All right. Ladies first. Sophie, what do you think?
Okay, well, based on the lore that we can read all over the internet, I checked a few hypotheses. Did I say that right? You know what I mean? And there's one that I actually like more than the other. A prediction, exactly. And it's basically how Morrowind, became Morrowind. If you know the story of the Battle of the Red Mountain, there's Nerevar and Dagot-Hur. Do I say that right too? Anyway, they led a group to battle, and they actually went into the Red Mountain as a diversion, and that's where they fought, and they got the heart of Lorcan. If you play Morrowind, you know what the heart is. And the lore says, well, it's an option here. The heart was used to kill the Dwemer race. And as we know, the heart corrupted Dagot-Hur, and that's how you play Morrowind. I think that's the one I like the most. The heart killed the Dwemer.
Interesting. I've never played Morrowind, so I'm not really familiar with what the heart is.
Well, basically, you have a hero, Nerevar, and he's like a legend in Morrowind, and Dagot-Hur is the bad guy. But they were actually together at one point, but it's the heart of the Red Mountain that corrupted him. So that's kind of why he's the end boss of the game. And he's used the heart to kill the race. Because we know the race died at the Battle of the Red Mountain, we just don't know how. So something happened there with Dagot-Hur in the heart. So I think that's what happened.
Do you guys think that we're going to find out for certain how the Dreamer died? Do you think we'll find out their fate in the Elder Scrolls Online?
Absolutely not. Considering that, I feel like they would save that for one, a single player game, and two, I'm pretty sure that TESO takes place a lot sooner than.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. If
timeline-wise, I guess it would be impossible.
I guess if people that lived in Skyrim during Elder Scrolls 5 didn't know,
right?
You could assume that people during the time of the Elder Scrolls Online wouldn't know also. Right. Tim, what's your prediction? What's your hypothesis, as Sophie would say?
I only know from what I've played with Skyrim, and there was always predictions and stuff like that in Skyrim about how they were always dwarves or Dwemer always seem to be like the go-to race for technology. They always seem to be like the most technologically advanced race in any game that you play that has dwarves in it. And from what I remember reading and hearing about in Skyrim is that at one point they got so technologically advanced that they started using like their their machinery and stuff like that, and they sort of kind of wanted to become quote unquote gods, and they started using all these different technologies that they researched, and they kept furthering their research and growing it and expanding it, and eventually apparently that was like their downfall from what I remember, and they just vanished out of thin air.
Interesting. So you think
like I think at one point somebody in the game, like one of the NPCs or the book, speculates that like they opened up a portal to a different dimension and they all went through it. Somebody else was saying something like they made something that was so awesome and then it just kind of backfired and killed them all. I'm assuming it's probably that they kind of were playing around with some stuff that they shouldn't have been playing around with and thought they were essentially immortal, and it turned out they weren't immortal because, well, they don't exist anymore. So
it's really interesting because Dan and I were talking about that earlier tonight, and Dan had that idea too.
Right.
Dan, do you still stand by that idea? How do you think the Dreamer died?
I didn't really. You guys just said you read some stuff, but I just think on my own sometimes. I dream. So what I thought of was, I think they got into business with the wrong people. I think they, as Tim said, got very technologically advanced, and they started doing some dark things, and they met up with the wrong people, and now they're just not here anymore. Like, I don't know. They did bad things, so that's what I think.
They owed some people some money, and they didn't pay their debts. And
yeah,
happened,
like that.
Knocking.
So basically, they all got Jimmy
like
Hoffa.
No Long Ball. Like back then, who was it back then? I don't know, but someone
Some
evil.
Daedric Prince just came out and was like, "Hey, I want my money." Oh, you don't have my money? Okay.
Interesting.
Your entire race is extinct.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be money, but it'd be their technology that they've created.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So you guys think that they had a similar fate, sort of like the Atlanteans?
I don't know. Dan knows all about the Atlanteans. Dan, what would you say about that?
I have zero knowledge of the Atlanteans.
You were speculating about that, like the third podcast about how you wanted an underwater world and stuff like that. I figured you would be a little. I figured you'd be a little bit knowledgeable about underwater things, right?
No, nope, I don't. No idea.
Shame, Dan. It's a shame.
Sorry.
All right, so that's our question of the week from the Zenimax Online team. Guys, I know it's some episodes we do the question of the week, some episodes we don't do a question of the week. It all depends on whether we feel we have time and or enough knowledge, tolerable knowledge on answering the question. So, you might not see us answer the question of the week every single week we do a podcast. We might not answer all questions of the week. So, just a heads up. Moving right along, Zenimax Online Studios announced the food tour promoting TESO. Let's see here. I got a list of locations. On March 10th, they're going to be in Austin at the XSW 2013. March 22nd, they're going to be at PAX East, which is exciting, in Boston. In the University of Massachusetts, they will be present on March 29th. Danny boy.
Yep.
And
UMass Boston.
This is really weird. They're going to be at Michigan State University on April 12th. I'm just dumbfounded
no idea why.
about that.
There we go, Tom.
Why. I mean, I can see why they wouldn't want to actually go to Detroit. I'm not blaming them. I mean, no offense to anybody that lives in Detroit, but
damage is done. Yeah. Yeah, what are they going to do? Have their food tour at Cobo Hall?
I mean, they could. It's okay. Yeah. Moving on.
University of Colorado, University of Arizona, Los Angeles for E3 2013, pardon me. Wow. We're going to be at Comic-Con in San Diego, PAX Prime, University of California in Los Angeles, and University of California in Berkeley. So these events start on March 10th in Austin, Texas. Wow. And they end on October 4th in California. What do you guys think? You guys think that since these events that are promoting the game end on October 4th, we can assume that The Elder Scrolls Online will have a holiday release or not be released within this time period of events?
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume that the game won't be released any sooner than October 4th. And obviously they're not going to release it on that day or the day after or probably not the week after. So I think it's safe to assume that the earliest we'll see it is November, but probably just because they'll want to maximize sales, we could probably see it mid-December, end of the year, kind of in time for the holidays.
Sophie, Dan, what do you guys think?
Well, just like you said, it's gonna be probably December, November. I don't see it coming anytime sooner than that, especially with the food tour, which, by the way, they're gonna be far from my home. They're not coming to Canada. Why? It never comes to Canada.
Right? They did say for any EU fans out there that are like, what the heck? North America's getting so much love. Don't worry.
I feel so left out. My
they are
heart is
coming to
broken.
Europe too. But I agree with you. There's nothing in the Southeast, which I
You never
thought
have
was weird.
anything over here at all. Like, you always have to go down the States. That's not fair. Not fair.
I am shocked that they are going to Michigan State, but
It's for the Canadians.
Michigan gets
It's for the
nothing.
Canadians.
All we have is the auto
Yeah,
show.
really. Michigan,
So I guess it's a good thing. I guess you're not too far from Michigan, right, Sophie?
It's still far, you know. I still have to
Yeah, I
cross
know.
I still have to cross the borders. You know, it's just,
Yeah, it's probably not worth the hassle.
you know, for food with that distance and the money I would probably use, you know, gas, I better off just buy food here. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what do you guys think? You know, it's a food tour, so they're going to be serving food, and they also said that there's going to be prizes involved, and obviously they're going to be promoting the Elder Scrolls Online. But do you think that since this food tour thing's going to E3 2012, or PAX, for example, do you think that this doesn't mean they're not going to have a booth at those events, or is this going to be the booth at those events? I hope it's not going to be the only thing that's at E3, especially
doubt
since
it.
the game's
Yeah.
supposed to release this
I
year.
really doubt it too. I really.
Like, it'd be disappointing for anybody that goes to E3 to see TESO and to just have a food truck. You know, I mean, no, I don't think so.
I hope not. Dan, what about you, man?
I don't think so. I think they're gonna have more than that. They have to. They're gonna promote it so well.
You agree with the holiday release, though?
Oh yeah, if you like look at sales don't do that well in like the summer compared to the months closer to Christmas and Hanukkah and all that. So I think they're gonna release it like earliest middle of November.
I agree.
That's my
I
thought.
totally agree. Yeah, people are doing stuff in the summer, so I definitely think that would be more beneficial for them to have a holiday release. Although, if that game did come out in the summer, I would be all over it. But yeah, cool. That is the Zenimax Online Food Tour going across North America. Moving right along, guys, let's talk about the most recent Ask Us Anything called the Variety Pack. There was one question I would like to discuss and speculate on with you guys. This is the question asked by, it's a Russian name. I'm not even going to try to pronunciate it. Well, I'll give it a shot. Mokum Kambaho. I'm sure I destroyed it though, but that's okay. The question is what counts. Will each alliance focus on its own specific roles, classes? For example, All-Mary Dominion is mostly mages, and Daggerfall Covenant, warriors. Zenimax Online responded, we feel strongly that you should develop your own role, regardless of which alliance you choose. So my question to you guys is, do you think this is confirmation that there won't be any racial abilities or traits in the Elder Scrolls Online? Because Zenimax Online doesn't want you to choose your race based on certain advantages they may or may not have within TESO.
I hope so, because I don't want people to feel like they have to play one race just to get the racials. I mean, maybe that's me being a bit biased because Legion's a high elf only guild, but I don't want people to feel like, hey, I've got to play a wood elf because they're naturally better with bows, or I got to play a high elf because they're naturally better with magicka. I don't want them to feel like they have to just play something just to get those extra stats, because there's min-maxers out there that feel that they have to do that stuff, otherwise they're gimping themselves. I mean, even the smallest amount of points and stats help out. So I just feel like doing that and going the racial route kind of limits players' customization. And anytime players are limited by customization, I kind of frown upon that.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And it ended up being a balance issue in World of Warcraft. I don't even remember. Did they take that out of WoW? Did they take out racial traits out of World of Warcraft? I forget.
I don't believe so.
But I know it causes a lot of animosity with balance issues in the future of the game.
Right.
I feel like if everyone starts out on an even playing field, even with their enemies, it would be an easier game to balance in the long run. Sophie, Dan, what do you guys think? Does this news disappoint
what I
you?
think is that, there's 3 factions and there's more than one race per faction. You have to remember that. So maybe there's like a race, like let's say the high elves are more casters, but the Khajiit will be more thief. So it's like each of the faction will have its mage race, its more tank race, and its thief race. But it's going to be the same in the opposite faction, so that does not cause any balance issues.
So you would like to still see ratio traits? Almost.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't... Go on.
It's been part of the game for so long, and I mean, some of the racial traits are not that major. They give a small bonus, but it's not something that is OP, so I don't see how that would be a problem. It's a TESO.
I mean, the only thing that I have against it is, like I said, it takes away people that really want to, because I'm kind of the same way. I'm not like a really big into min-maxing, but I'm kind of about having the best stats that I could possibly have. Like in Tor, I went around and I found all the datacrons possible. I mean, you didn't get a super huge bonus when you found them all, but you did get a good sized bonus. And I went around and found all those stuff, all those datacrons, because it's every little bit that counts, and it's every little bit that helps in the long run. And I feel that people early on are going to be torn between, hey, I want to be, let's say I want to be a guy that's really good at using a bow, but I'm in a guild like Legion that's all high elves, or I want to play a high elf because my friends are playing high elves and I want to start next to them or whatever. They're going to be forced to choose between the two because, well, the Bosmer obviously is better with bows as opposed to the high elf who, is better with magic or magicka. And that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of where I draw the line is how much do you want to take away from players? In a single player game, it's fine because you can just reroll or whatever, and it's the same story, it's the same concept. I mean, yeah, I guess the same story, and the argument could be said that you could reroll in TESO as well, but I think it's a lot different in an MMO because, with Skyrim, you play the game, you spend, 300 hours if you do a lot of the things in Skyrim. That's a huge amount of time, but in an MMO, you potentially spend so much more time. I mean, you spend potentially months after the game's been out for so long in just game time alone. So I feel like, that it should kind of be based off of, if they're going to give you like racials, kind of go the route Tor did. Give them a cool emote or something that makes their race still a little unique, but nothing to where it's going to make you choose between this race or that race.
I think the emo is a perfect solution. I really do. I think the emo is a perfect solution. I totally agree. The fact that, the race you choose can be swayed based on a couple of points or added attributes you get from a racial ability turns me off. To me, that is limiting so much to the players, what they want to do. And I don't know. I totally agree with you, Tim. Dan, what's your take on this? Do you want to see
could
racial
see-
abilities or not?
I could see it going either way, but personally, I'm with Sophie with this one, and I'd like to see him in the game.
You'd like to see racial abilities?
Yes. No stupid emotion or emo, whatever. I'd rather see an ability.
Well, see, what they did in Star Wars The Old Republic, for example, is they had emotions instead. So, like, a cyborg character, he could do this cool thing with his cyborg eye that, like, scanned a player or whatever he was targeted to. But I just don't understand why you guys are supporting that, because
that's what the Elder Scrolls is about.
But if it's a playing field, everyone's on an even playing field,
Right.
where there is no, you don't need to worry about that. Why isn't that better?
I don't know. I just feel like you choose your character, that's what you get.
Because-
like, I don't know. That's what makes you like that
At
character.
some point, you have to draw the line for an MMO, right? There was KOTOR, and there was so many things that you could do in KOTOR, right? I mean, you play as, without spoiling it, a really freaking awesome Jedi, okay? And you get all these powers, and you dominate NPCs. But it's not like that in an MMO. I mean, you might dominate NPCs, but you're not going to be dominating players or other things like that. And the story can only be so limited or whatever because everybody's experiencing that story and yada yada. I mean, there's things that you can do in a single player version of the game as opposed to a multiplayer MMO version of the game. And in a multiplayer or an MMO, you have to draw the line at some point because it comes down to balance. And you need to be able to balance the game and make it fun for everybody.
I just remember years and years ago when I was playing World of Warcraft and I wanted to play a class with an advantage. Well, I wanted to play a class that used magic, so a mage, right? And I had all of these different races that could have a mage class. You can make a character with a mage class, but it was totally pointless because if I really wanted to have a dramatic advantage with my mage in both PvE and PvP, I played Horde, and the whole arcane magic sort of advantage went to the Blood Elves. I think they have like added arcane resistance, and I think they also have a buff in arcane magic abilities and stuff. But I thought the Blood Elves looked stupid. To me, like, they look stupid. But I was still almost indirectly forced to play that if I wanted to maximize my playing experience. And it's like, why can't you just have an even playing field for everyone? Now I need to play this Blood Elf mage, where I'd rather be like a troll mage or something. But I gotta play a Blood Elf mage because he has this resistance ability with arcane magic and stuff.
Right.
I don't know. That's just what warms up my
They
buns.
could at some point add another layer of customization onto it and allow you to choose your buff at the beginning of the customization. So, like, if I want to play as a high elf, I mean, I know that it goes against the way the Elder Scrolls games are played, so don't get, upset about that. But basically what I'm getting at is, for an MMO, you could take a high elf, okay, and if you want to be a bowmaster, you could take the Bosmer, quote-unquote racial ability and give it to the high elf and let him be, better in bows. But obviously at that point he's not going to be, as strong in magicka or whatever. Give players an ability, and that way if they change later on, they still have they're still stuck with their racial that they chose at the beginning of the game, because it doesn't at that point become a racial anymore. But their buff that they started off with at the beginning of the game, their class is sort of designed from the beginning to be a bowmaster. But if they decide later on, hey, I want to be a mage, or I want to be a sword and board, they can switch over. They just don't have that buff that benefits them anymore. I mean, they still have
exactly
it. But
What I think is logical is that you have your class, you start with it, and it has the base stats. Say the high elf is the mage, so it has more intelligence. And well, if you do the Khajiit, I guess it has more dex. But you start as a high elf, and you decide down the road, well, I want to go into more the thief line, and I want to have more dex. You level up and you're going to put points in Dex, but you're not going to be as high as you can if you would have started as a Khajiit. But Paul Sage did say in his interview, you know, after level 50, there's still a way for achievers to cap on everything. So it just means that down the road, you're going to waste, I guess, more points into the specs you want to train into, but that doesn't mean that it won't be possible.
Yeah, and that's why I think that they won't have racial abilities. If you could cap in everything, then I doubt they'll have racial traits for this game, because that totally contradicts the whole capping thing. If you know what I'm saying, just what you just said, Sophie. Because I find it hard to believe that racial ability system will be implemented. I feel like it contradicts the whole point of having hybrid builds and customizing your own class role build. If you have certain advantages by playing, you know, it's not even based off the class. It's based off the race. That shouldn't be the case.
And even more, I mean, when you have a hardcore raid group that wants a healer that can optimize heals, they need to have, obviously, a lot of magicka. And if you're playing as, say, you know, a Khajiit, and you want to be a mage, and you're healing, and it comes down to, at endgame, either the Khajiit or the High Elf, and the High Elf obviously has more magicka because they have, you know, the High Elf racial ability, it's going to go to the High Elf automatically. Even if both players are equally geared and equally, you know, skill-based. That's pretty much impossible, but hypothetically speaking, for argument's sake, everything's equal except for the racial. The logical, you know, answer would be to go with the High Elf simply because of his racial ability. And I think that's kind of unfair, too.
So yeah, only time will tell. Only time will tell what does happen. Maybe we'll find out in closed beta, although we won't be able to talk about it. But only time will tell to see whether or not, if that is the case, if there will be racial abilities implemented in TESO or not. Moving right along, we're going to talk about one of our editorials written by a new author and writer in the Troll Scroll community, a gentleman by the name of Will Flores. He talks about sign stones. Tim, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on what sign stones were in Skyrim and how they differed from those that were sort of mimicked from Oblivion?
Well, in Oblivion and previous games, you had the birth signs that you could choose at the beginning of the game that kind of outlined what your character was going to be kind of focusing on. Okay. And in Skyrim, they kind of did away with that, and they went the route of these sign stones where you could go around and you could basically switch whichever sign stone you wanted to, whatever you were working on. So basically, if you're working on, you know, if you want to be a warrior, you know, you get the Stone of the Warrior, and that increased all of your, you know, one-handed weapons and your two-handed weapons, and the rate at which you learned and advanced in skill. Same with, you know, like blacksmithing and so on and so forth. And then you could switch at any point you wanted to with no penalty. You could switch over to, say, the Sign of the Apprentice or whatever and get the benefits from that stone. And they were scattered throughout all of Skyrim. There's 13 of them. They were scattered through Skyrim, and you had to go and find them, and so on and so forth. So, basically, Will was talking about, you know, will they have something similar to the Sign Stones in the Elder Scrolls Online, or are they going to have something similar to the Birthstones in the Elder Scrolls Online?
Sophie, let's start with you. What do you think?
I would prefer, personally, to have the birthstones like they had in Arena and Morrowind and Oblivion, you know, because you start and you have your, yeah, the birth signs. Like, you just go and, well, whether, you know, you answer all the questions they ask you, it'll select a sign for you, or you can just go and choose it. And, I mean, you start your character into the MMO, and you know what you want to play. And, I mean, I don't see how they would have sign stones in the game. Like, how would they even put that in the MMO? Because all the factions would need to have all the stones in all their regions, unless everybody can go everywhere.
Interesting. That's true. That is true. I don't know how they would do that unless they had sign stones in Cyrodiil.
Right.
That would be sort of a unique mechanic, though, if they did have sign stones, where you had to seek them out to get some specific traits or builds for your role.
Somebody was comparing them. One of the guys that commented on it on Troll Scroll was saying there's sort of they were comparing them to the Datacrons in Tor, and basically for anybody that doesn't know, the Datacrons in Tor were essentially permanent stat boosters that were scattered throughout the game. So early on in the first few planets, they gave you +1, +2 to strength, +2 to constitution or whatever you're going for your stats, and they were permanent boosts and they stacked on top of each other. Okay. And there was, I don't know the exact number, but there's like 63 or something of them scattered throughout the game, and they were hard to get to. They weren't on the, path, so to speak. They were off the beaten road. Totally, like, some of them were totally secluded, and some of them were, you got to it and you could see it, but then you had to kind of think about how to get to it. You had to, like, do a lot of platforming. A lot of them were platforming based. And they were sort of puzzles and stuff. And they were really a lot of fun to get, because it created it was a good guild event. And it was just something fun to do while you're adventuring. You see a Datacron, you want to get to it. I don't think they would do that with the summoning stones, or not summoning stones, pardon me, the sign stones, just simply because, they didn't do that in Skyrim, and, you have to go back to it potentially, like in the future, because you want to get the different bonuses from the stones. So it's not like a one-time deal where you spend 15, 20 minutes trying to get to this thing, only to have to come back to it 10 minutes later because you switched your stone to something else and you want to get it back. So I honestly think Sophie's probably right. They'll probably go with the earth signs.
Interesting. I wonder if they're going to go with either of these.
Well, they might not.
To be honest with you.
Possibility.
But I really don't know how else they would do it. Because this game, you're going to be able to fully customize your class. I find it hard to believe that Zenimax Online will just keep it boring, where you just go find the class trainer that you want to spec into with these specific abilities, and you go to this trainer to give you eligibility to wear heavy armor, for example. I can't imagine they would make it that generic. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's not how it really worked in Skyrim, or in the previous games. I mean, you could wear whatever armor you wanted to, and they've already said that we could do that. It was just more so like, you would get a bonus in, like, if you started off as like a thief, you would get a bonus in your dexterity or sneak or whatever you're speccing into. Your stats would kind of have an increase in the beginning, and it would go from there. And I think, don't quote me on this, I think in Oblivion it maxed out higher depending on which one you went with, but we were just talking about that. They probably won't do something like that in TESO, so that wouldn't be in there. I don't know for sure if that was even in Oblivion, but yeah, you just basically had a bonus in the beginning of the game with whatever you chose. So it wouldn't be like, if you choose a knight, you can't wear light armor, or if you choose a mage, you can't wear heavy armor. I mean, they've already said you're going to be a mage running around in full body armor and a two-handed sword casting spells. So
Interesting. Moving right along, we're going to jump into our mealtime questions. Let's do this. Number 1, our first mealtime question is from @LiamScoff, @RealTrollScroll. They say that you will get experience and stuff even if you aren't in a group. Will people level up like crazy the first month? Well, I hope you would get experience despite whether or not you were in a group.
yeah,
if you are level.
That would be unfortunate if you didn't.
Will people level up like crazy the first month? I don't really understand what he's trying. Do you guys understand what he means by that?
Maybe he thinks if you're in a group, you'll get an XP boost or something. I don't know.
Well,
can you reread it?
Like,
please.
Well, I think what he's talking about is, but that's, I don't know. I was gonna go back to say what you were saying, Dan. But is he talking about the mega server and how everyone's going to be with let's say, is he talking about group dynamics with the mega server rather than, are people going to be at a disadvantage, let's say, if they're not into grouping and they get put on a server within the mega server, a shard, where players don't want a group? I think that's what he's asking. Is there an advantage being a solo player, or a disadvantage being a solo player rather than being a player within a group with experience?
I don't think so. I think they want people to group up, so they'll make I don't know, little like bonuses or something. Like they won't hurt the player for grouping, and I don't think they'll hurt the player for being by themselves.
I don't know. That is a good question, though. I can't imagine. I can't,
They gave you incentive in Tour for being in a group. Now, it wasn't really that big of an incentive, and it's not the route that I would want them to go in TESO, just because I think the incentive wasn't... It was a broken system. But basically the idea behind it was you get into a group, and when you participate in group conversations and stuff, you get social points, and those social points could be used to buy items that didn't give you advantages like armor, but you could buy like different gear sets. Like, for instance, you could buy like a Tusken Raider outfit. Okay, and then you were supposed to be able to rip the mods out and put them into that and yada 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 yada, make it, you know, comparable armor with endgame stuff. But there's a broken system, like I said. The point is, you know, they kind of went that route. I hope that they go and give you an incentive for being in a group, but I don't want them to like give you double XP for being in a group as opposed to single playing by yourself, because I get that they want to go with the social aspect, you know, with them implementing all these social features and stuff like that. But I mean, if your guild's offline or your friends are offline and you're playing late at night or early in the morning or something like that, why should you be penalized for not grouping with your guild?
Yeah.
Or
that's how it goes, though. That's the problem.
Right, and I get that, you know, your excuse could be, oh, well, then find a group. Okay. I mean, I could get if they gave them a small bonus, but, like, you know, not something, like, super radical, because that's just...
Well, like, if he's talking about XP grinding, obviously soloing is going to be slower than if you're a group of people because they just kill much faster. But what if they implement something like Rift or Guild Wars 2, you know, like group events, and you don't have to be grouped, but if you're in the area and you just participate, then you gain points for being in it, and that would be cool if they had that.
So you're sort of
soloists.
talking about, like, almost public questing, how it automatically puts you in the same phase as people in proximity to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good idea.
Because, like, Paul Sage did say, like, you're in the dungeon and you have somebody that's there with you and he can help you kill the mob you're killing, and that just won't penalize him nor you. You're just both gonna get the XP.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense. I mean, you're not technically officially in a party/group that you started or that someone else started and invited you to. You're just in proximity to other players that are trying to achieve the same goals you are. So you're still soloing, but in a different fashion.
Right.
That was actually a pretty good question. Markov.
If that's what he meant.
Yeah, if that's
What did you say,
that's what
Dan?
he meant.
If that's what he meant, if he didn't mean that, then
If that's what he meant.
answered
Exactly.
totally wrong.
Yeah. Exactly.
If he meant that in the first month of the release, of course there's going to be hardcore players that are going to max out really quickly while others won't. But will that be because of groups? You know, I guess not really. It just depends how they're going to do the whole XP thing. It's hard to say.
Do you think he's maybe talking about how, like, when every new MMORPG comes out, there's always some guy, like a fiend, that races to cap level, and there's a group of people that's following a fiend, keeping him healed, keeping him buffed, etc., so that he could be the first one on Earth to get max level within the first month? It's more like the first couple of days, though.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Anyways, Markov, I apologize if we interpret it correctly or misinterpreted your question. I hope we interpret it correctly. Moving right along, at Kthel, at Real Troll Scroll, do you guys think that if the game is focused on exploring, will we be able to go to other Alliance lands? Do you guys think that when the game is quite focused on exploring, it will be able to go to other Alliance lands? No.
No.
I wish, but no.
Yeah, that's what the faction...
Faction-locked territories, unfortunately. I think the only land that we're going to be able to have in common to explore with the other two factions is Cyrodiil, and we already know pretty much what's in Cyrodiil.
Right.
So, I know, it's a bummer. It's a bummer. Sophie, Dan, do you guys agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
that you'll be able to explore other people's zones.
Yeah. Shame. And last but certainly not least, at RecMMO says, Yo, Trollscrow, any thoughts on how trade will work? Will auctions be mega server wide or limited to instances? So like the shards of the mega server.
I would
That's a
say,
good question.
I would say that they're probably going to be mega server, just because.
Really?
Just because it's
Interesting.
not going back to what I keep going back to RuneScape on this because it's the closest thing that I can get to that I've played personally. That each world is like your own shard in the Elder Scrolls Online, but as a game, you're still technically on one server, and it was just entire game, And I kind of like that, just because, I mean, that way everybody's kind of on the same page, and it's fair game for everybody when it comes to like the economy and the auctions and stuff that you can buy. So, because sometimes, like, you get on servers, like in WoW, you get on a server and, like, copper ore will be ridiculously cheap at, like, 5 gold a stack, and then you'll get on another server and it'll be, like, 25 gold a stack. So, I feel like I really do feel like it'll be mega server-wide.
Yeah, it will definitely be a more versatile economy. There won't be inflation, hopefully. And if there is inflation, everyone will be affected by it. So that is a good thing, because there will be commonality between all the players on the mega server. You know what I'm saying? No one will be at a disadvantage or advantage. I totally agree. That's great. Sophie, Dan, what do you guys think?
I agreed.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be the mega server.
That makes most sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what the Elder Scrolls Online in-game economy has in store for us. Just because crafting was pretty unique in Skyrim, what I played, and just what Paul Sage was talking about a couple weeks ago with how crafting is going to be making its footmark within TESO. I really hope that it's a competitive marketplace. That would be legit. That's our mail time questions, guys. We are going to conclude, but before we do, Tim, tell us about Trollscroll.com, the new overhaul, and our current state of forums, please.
Right now, as some of you may have known, we haven't actually like officially announced it, like gone out and told the world. But for those who have been visiting the website, we did revamp our main page and change things around a bit. We feel that it's less like a blog feel and more news venue. Like, you can actually go there and everything that you need is listed there, instead of having to scroll down and try to find everything. You've got everything listed there, and you can kind of get to things faster. The website's still in beta, okay? And speaking of beta, that brings me to our forums. Our forums that we currently have right now are just temporary forums. Those are like the very basic forums. We are completely planning on adding I guess you could say legit forums. The forums that we have now are just basic. Temporary basic forums. So, we're going to be overhauling the forums as well. We just wanted to get the website out there for people to kind of get on there, give us feedback, kind of get an idea of what the new website was looking like. Because we're still, I guess you could say, building it. And there'll still be changes potentially on the main page as well as the forums, so keep your eyes out. Keep looking at trollscroll.com and tell us what you think, because honestly, the website is for you guys, not for us. So tell us what you guys would like to see on the website.
Indeed. Very good. Sophie, can you give our audience a little bit of a breakdown of where you can be found?
Okay, I can be found on Twitter at Ederbreca, EADERBRECA. Same thing for Facebook, and you can find me on Sophie Breca on YouTube.
Awesome sauce. What about you, Grizzly Man?
You can find me on Twitter at DanDelSignor.
Nice. And the French guy.
You can find me on Twitter at oh wait, no. I'm sorry, don't do that, because that would be wrong. _French_guy. That's the French guy. on Twitter.
Yeah, Tim needs some followers.
I mean, I'm not really. Yeah, I guess if you're really interested.
Well, once you get followers, you'll start tweeting, right?
I'm starting to get into it. Yeah. So
follow Tim. He'll start tweeting. He promises.
Yeah.
Got a question for you, Tim, regarding your name.
geez.
Why did you pick La?
I don't know.
Instead of Le?
Because I
Because
I don't know the difference.
La
between-
is for females. La is for females, and Le is for guys.
Here's the thing.
But I guess that's just a touch. I don't know. I shouldn't have said
Thank you,
that.
Sophie. Now I look like a
Girly girl.
Sophie shows Tim up. Wow. Sophie, that's pretty hard.
I mean,
now that I
that's been
have
bugging me.
no self-esteem and I'm extremely insecure about my Twitter name, I'm going to change that.
I'm sure all French people have
because
thought the
now I
same
feel
thing as
feminine.
me. So.
And
Well, don't change it yet. Don't change
No, I
it
have
yet.
to.
People are getting ready to follow. They're going to be confused. They're going to search it, and then they're going to be like, "Where's the
all
French
right,
guy?"
fine. I'll wait like a week and then I'm going to have to change it.
Wait a week.
I didn't take
Wait a
French.
week.
I took Spanish in high school, so I'll kind of back off.
But
You know
La's
what,
still feminine.
Dan?
in
I don't.
Spanish.
The point is, I didn't do so hot in Spanish either because I decided, learning a second language wasn't for me. So this is completely off topic and pointless and irrelevant to what we're.
Sophie, I'm glad you're here. You can be our linguistic, accurate interpreter.
You couldn't tell me that like
Translator.
2 weeks ago, Sophie. Like you just now picked up on that.
I didn't want to tell you. Like I
So
didn't
you
want to
just
hurt
wanted to
your
tell me
feelings.
publicly instead of privately when we have staff meetings or something like that. You could have just been like,
That's
"Hey
funny.
Tim,
It's
whatever.
I did.
It's whatever.
That's really good.
It's whatever."
That's really
Yeah,
good.
I'm glad you think so.
You don't see me when I'm really blushing right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, episode 14. Thank you for tuning in, guys and girls. Follow Troll Scroll on Twitter. I am having a terrible time pronouncing it tonight. At Real Troll Scroll. Go to trollscroll.com to get all the news you need to know about the Elder Scrolls Online. Everything you need to know is on there. Everything that's new, everything that's relevant, everything a fan planning on playing that game needs to know is on trollscroll.com. So check it out. We would love it if you would like our Facebook page. And that's all I got. That's all I got, guys. We are all set. See you later, guys. Take care.
Have a great night.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Cheerio.
Have fun.
Adios.
Live life.
Yes.